But every day I met somebody different. Every day my job was different. I never had the same day twice. I'm Julie Yingling. I am the Public Information Officer for the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office. I'm also a police officer. I'm just currently assigned to our media division. I have been a police officer for 23, almost 24 years. It's been a very long career. During my career, I have done, mostly my career has been spent in patrol, working the road. I've also been a detective. I've investigated child abuses, domestic violence. I've also been a patrol supervisor, and most recently, for the last 3 years, my assignment has been the public information officer, which basically means I liaison with the media. So initially, I wanted to be a lawyer, so I took pre-law classes. One of my pre-law classes was, as you guessed it, criminal justice. Once I got into criminal justice, I absolutely loved it. The forensic aspect, the investigating crimes aspect. My stepfather was actually a barrack commander for the state police, so I was not interested in police work in any way, shape, or form. Wasn't impressed with it. Had no desires to do it. Once I started doing criminal justice, I was like, wow, this is awesome. So, and I've never typically been very, I would say I'm not a tomboy. I love clothes, I love makeup, I love shoes, but there's also the other side of me that loves to drive really fast. I love to shoot guns. I love to have excitement in my day. All of those things kind of encompass what you need to do to be in law enforcement. I honestly think the career chose me. I don't think I chose it. As I said, I wanted to go to law school. That was initially what I had planned on doing. I moved home after college to kind of figure out, okay, what am I going to do? And my mother showed me an opening for the sheriff's office. So I was like, oh, well, I might do that in the meantime. So I initially started working at the jail. Once I started working at our detention center, I was like, wow, I really think I do want to work the road. I want to be a police officer. I want to help people. I want to investigate crime. So I applied to be a deputy sheriff and I got hired. The time I got hired, I believe I was one of only 4 female deputies that we had in the entire county. It is such an exciting field, and there are so many places and things you can do and go. I wanted to initially go federal, but once I got married, I realized when I married another police officer, I was like, wow, if I go federal, I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be assigned anywhere in the United States. I was like, there's no way if I go federal that I'm going to be able to stay married. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I should probably stay local, which I'm glad I did. And then again, having children, I'm really glad I stayed local because now both of my kids have been able to go through. Well, Jax is still in St. John's. My daughter's been able to go through and graduate St. John's, and my littlest one is still there. So staying local for me really was a godsend, not going federal. But I keep telling my daughter, because she's a lot like me. She's not your typical girl. She likes to be on the edge of things and in the middle of things. And I told her, I said, I don't think local law enforcement's for you. I said, but I could definitely see her going into forensics. There's just so many different facets of this career. You don't have to be a patrol officer. You can go do forensic science, or you can go be, like my husband's also a polygrapher. He does that for the agency, which is who gives polygraphs. There's just so many different avenues that criminal justice and law enforcement can take you into. I wish I had thought about when I was younger, you've got the DEA. I never gave them any consideration. You've got the NTSB, the transportation. There's just so many different avenues to go into where you don't need to be a patrol officer to be in law enforcement. Now it's actually getting the information out to the media, getting the correct information out to the media. But initially, as a police officer, one of my favorite parts of this job was, of course, helping people, because I live in St. Mary's County. So I want St. Mary's County to be safe. I want people to have a comfortable life here. So obviously, since I live here, I want my community to be safe and I want to help that. I also, like I said, I love investigating crimes and trying to figure out the answer to things. But my favorite part of the job was every day I met somebody different. And sometimes it was not under the best circumstances, but every day I met somebody different. Every day my job was different. I never had the same day twice. And that's one of the things I love about law enforcement. And yes, you have a boss. You have several bosses in law enforcement, depending on what your assignment is. But when you're in your patrol car and you have your own time and you have your own little sector, your beat that you're working, you are your own boss. You get to decide if you want to pull traffic, and you get to decide if you want to go stop by the school and talk to the kids. You get to be your own boss in your own way. So that's one of the things I love about this job. Wow. The hardest part of my job would be what we carry with us. Put him away, please. Would be what we carry with us forever. In other words, I will carry with me all the death notifications I've made. I will carry with me the dead infant that we had to investigate. I will carry with me some of the autopsies I've done. I will always carry certain parts of this job with me. They won't go away. Every Christmas, I remember the Sid's baby who was born on Christmas that died. My daughter's birthday, I remember the child abuse case we investigated that resulted in a dead child. So I will always carry those parts of my job with me. Those are probably the most difficult. Having to tell a family member that, someone they love is no longer here. It's probably the worst part of the job. And there are obviously things that I will never unsee. There's accident scenes I've worked. There's burn victims I've seen, and I those are things I will never unsee. So surprisingly, I always thought it would be the most rewarding things I remember are our Shop with the Cop programs where we get to take children shopping. They get money donated by the Optimist Club and our Fraternal Order Police. And then we get to take the kids shopping and interact with them and make their Christmases better. So I honestly kind of thought that those are probably my favorite things about the job. Until recently, I was thinking I was somewhere with my kids. And I have a very distinct, annoying voice. I can't stand it. It's very memorable. And I was in plain clothes doing something, and a lady stopped me and she said, "I want you to know you saved my life." And I was like, "I did?" And she said, "I was overdosing, and it was during a snowstorm, and the ambulance couldn't get back to her trailer. I literally had to drag her from her trailer. And she was almost completely deceased. I literally had to drag her out to meet the ambulance and get her resuscitated and whatever." She said, "You saved my life." She goes, "I'll never forget your voice." She said, "I saw your face briefly," she said, "but it was your voice. It's all I could remember." She goes, was you talking to me and you giving me Narcan and you telling me that everything was going to be okay, even though I had no idea it was." She goes, "All I could remember was your voice." So that was a very big surprise, because honestly, I couldn't have placed her. I wouldn't have known who she was had she not told me. And then I stopped one morning to get my daily dose of caffeine. And the lady working behind the register goes, "Are you still a police officer?" And I was like, "I am." And I couldn't tell who she was because of the mask. And she's like, "You've arrested me at least 20 times. I was like, "Oh, yes, I have. I know exactly who you are now." She said, "I've been clean and sober for 3 years." And she said, "Out of everyone that's ever arrested me," she said, "you were nice, you cared." She said, "You always said positive things to me." She said, "You always told me that I mattered." She said, "I've never forgotten you." And she said, "I've always wanted to tell you, hey, I'm clean and sober now." So honestly, when I look back and things like that, I think that's been the best part of my job. Oh, goodness. I don't know where to start on that one. Any career in law enforcement, it's never going to be easy. First and foremost, we have a pretty intensive training academy that we have to complete. It's very physical, it's also academic. But I think some of the challenges I have faced haven't necessarily been with anyone I work with, but maybe the public. There's times when I would go on a scene of a domestic and one of the parties would be like, "Well, isn't there a male officer coming to help you?" I don't need a male officer to come help me. I got this. Or a time I had to go serve an order and kick someone out of the house. And the wife actually told me, I'd wait till a big male officer can come because my husband's really big. It's scary. I was like, I assure you, he is not. I will handle it and I will handle it well. So I think the misconceptions of what females can do has been a problem in my career. It's been a challenge. Like I said, not with who I work with, but actually someone's not the public that we deal with. And I remember one lady, her another domestic, and she was, very, very distraught. And I was again by myself and waiting. I had backup coming. And she's like, I think it best that we not go inside because he's really angry. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to go inside. And he was cowering under the bed like a complete coward. So again, it's the misconceptions that females face in any male dominated field, not necessarily just law enforcement. I would say, especially for law enforcement, because every day is different. It would need to be someone again who likes every day different. It would need to be someone who doesn't have a set way of doing things, because in law enforcement you have to think out of the box, and we're constantly trying to evolve, and we're trying to train and keep on top of things. So typically in law enforcement, and I'm guilty of it too, we don't like change. We are very set in our ways and we don't like change and being told how to do things. And you have to be able to evolve as time goes on. You have to always be able to, okay, I can do this better. This training's great. You actually have to be, obviously for a female in this job, you need to be assertive. You need to know how to take charge of a scene, how to go into a scene that's in total chaos, and you have to manage it. You have to take charge of it. You also, in another challenge is if you want a family in this line of work, you are going to need to pick a spouse who can handle having a wife who isn't going to come home at 5 o'clock. Your shift might be over at 10 and you'll be lucky if you get home at midnight or 2 a.m. You need to have family or a spouse who can be there to support you and pick up the pieces like your children when you can't get them yourself. Someone that can step in, anyone in this job, male or female, to succeed in this job, you need a lot of support, family support, spousal support. Those are big attributes, and communication is a key in law enforcement. One of the things I have noticed in my career is 9 times out of 10, I can talk a situation down, or I can talk someone into doing what I want them to do without having to be physical. And when you're not a very big person, that's a good skill to have, because you don't want to go to work every day and fight. When I first started this job, it's what I thought every day was going to be, and it's not. There's maybe been definitely more than a handful of times, but not that many times that you would think I had to go hands-on with anybody. Generally, good communication skills can solve a lot of problems. Oh my goodness. If it wasn't for the supportive family that I have and my husband, I would have no family life. That is definitely a challenge for any female in a male dominated field, but especially law enforcement, giving shift work, giving that, you're going to be missing holidays. You're going to miss special occasions. It's just a given. You're going to miss date night because you've been ordered to work or something has happened and you can't get off on time. If it wasn't for my husband and my family being so supportive and doing childcare for both of my kids, I don't know how we would have ever done it. We've been blessed with grandparents who wanted to be involved and begged us to babysit and help us out. And even to this day, my mother still picks up my youngest son from school. Without family support, there's no way, and I would have been able to even have children in this career. But then it also goes back to, you need to pick a spouse, and not everyone's cut out to have a spouse that goes to work that might not come home. That takes a certain, and male or female, that takes a certain kind of person, because my husband's also a police officer. It takes a certain kind of person to look at your spouse and say, hey, I love you, have a great day at work, knowing there's a big chance they're not going to come home. So luckily, St. Mary's is a great community to be a police officer in. We're very blessed here. We have such community support, and it's probably one of the safer places to be a police officer. However, any time that anything can happen. So it takes a very special person to be able to let their spouse, especially a woman, go to work and, hey, I hope you come home tonight. I hope to see you. if it wasn't for my belief in Christ, I'm not sure I would have made it this far. And again, it's any career, but especially law enforcement. There's a lot of divorce. There's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of added stressors that a lot of people don't have. Again, our long hours, our missed holidays, missed birthdays, missing your kids' school plays, things like that, and the guilt we carry for missing all of these things, the guilt of not being able to come home on Christmas morning, and um, so it's again, if it wasn't for my faith in Christ, some of the things I have seen, again, the death notifications and some of the accidents and just the suicides and things that I've witnessed, if it wasn't for, my strength in Christ, I'm really not sure that I would, one, still be married, and two, still be in this career at all, because you need to realize that there is someone else in charge. It's not you. At the end of the day, depending on what kind of day I've had, I honestly give it to God, is what you have no choice but to do that. And thankfully, Father Ray is such an amazing person to talk to. And again, the sheriff's office has been blessed. We have an incredible chaplains corps that represents a lot of different faiths, and they actually will do ride-alongs with us. So one of my favorite things in the job was one of our chaplains. He would frequently come and ride with me, and he would ride almost the entire 12 hours, and he would spend his entire shift in my car, and we would run around and handle calls. But at the end of the day, he would always reaffirm my faith in Christ, and we would talk about God. And so I think in this job, in any job that's stressful like this, you need to have faith. I would recommend for any female that wants to pursue a career in this field, first and foremost, again, picking your spouse is, if you want to make a career of this, it needs to have considerable thought in who you decide to share your life with, because that person's going to, again, have to pick up the pieces when you can't get home, when you can't pick up your child from school. So I would recommend be very, pick someone who is going to be supportive of you, pick someone who will be supportive of your career. And I would always, again, focus on communication skills, the ability to talk to people, and not people that you're comfortable with, people that you're not comfortable with. There are a lot of people who have completely different beliefs than mine out there, and I have no problem talking to them. I've got no problem, working through their problems with them and trying to help them. They're just as worthy as everybody else, and they need to be treated the same. So you need to be able to be comfortable and speak to anybody, and no matter what their levels, no matter what they believe in. And at the end of the day, your job is out there to help people, and that's what you need to do. So you need to have the ability to be able to do that. I know we had a couple of police officers that did not last with us because of their inability to deal with people that were different than them.